All right. Good morning from the Fuse Microfactory in Chicago, Illinois. I'm Amelia, the Fuse community leader, and I'm here with Naveen, our technology leader for Fuse, and he's going to lead us through the live Q&A today for the all-in-one X-ray plate adapter challenge. You ready to take it over?
Yep. Hello, okay. And welcome to the challenge. Here I am going to just give a brief overview of the challenge itself. Oh, there we go. I'm going to give a brief overview of the challenge itself. So the first question I guess we need to answer is, why are we here? What are we trying to do? So the aim here is to develop a new method to transport imaging plates through a field radiography scanner. Currently, the plates are transported using magnetic rollers and a magnetic belt. What this means is that the plates themselves have to be ferromagnetic, or they have to have a ferromagnetic backing, because that's the only way they can attach to the magnetic rollers. So the question we are trying to ask is whether we can replace the rollers with a different transport mechanism, or even better, can we come up with a removable temporary way to make other plates ferromagnetic. So that's the basic ask here. And what's in it for you guys? Well, there's 5 prizes worth about $3,000 each. There's a chance to work with GE on prototyping the solution. We'd build out the solution and have it designed fully and make a product out of this. We don't intend to stop at the end of this challenge. So that's something big. And then of course the never-ending bragging rights that come with doing anything engineering, I guess. Just to give a few details here, and this is stuff that's already on the website, but I just wanted to put this out there so you can ask me questions if there are any. So this is kind of a picture of a cross-section of our scanner. We have the input tray right here, which takes the plates, and you put the plate on this, and you kind of like manually push the plate in until it hits the magnetic roller, what they call the input roll. And at that point, the roller takes over. It slides the plate onto this belt, which is also magnetic, and then this belt takes the plate through, and it comes out of the other end. So basically, it's an extremely simple mechanism. It's an extremely straightforward issue here. We have a plate which is magnetic on the back. We have 2 magnetic rollers and transport belts, and the plate needs to go through. So now the question is, what happens if this plate does not have a magnetic backing, or the plate is not metallic even? So can we do something to utilize the existing systems to transport it? Alternatively, and this is obviously a less preferable option, because modifying the scanner means there's a whole bunch of stuff that needs to go happen. It needs to be recertified for our customers and so on. So that's a much longer time process. But conceivably, there's one option where we take these parts, the magnetic roller and the magnetic transport belt, and replace it with something else. So that's, I guess, one secondary option, but ideally we'd like to do something that does not touch the actual scanner itself. I think that's basically it. So I'm going to wait for questions here, if anybody has any.
Are you ready for questions?
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm going to stay on the slide though.
Sure. So we have a couple questions that came on from the site earlier this week. The first one comes from C. Quintero, one of our community members. He asked if the goal of the search is a new adapter. Is it just to improve the quality of the images?
No. So, and I think I actually responded to C. Quintero, but I'm going to address that here for everybody else. So, no, the goal is not a new adapter to improve image quality, though I doubt if anybody will have a problem with something that does improve image quality. The goal is to be able to use all kinds of plates with the scanner. So we don't want to restrict it to plates that have a magnetic backing. We want to be able to use arbitrary plates, or plates that are not metallic, plates that are metallic but are not ferromagnetic or whatever. So we want to be able to use all kinds of plates. So that's the primary goal of the challenge itself. The way to do that would necessarily be without reducing image quality. So if you come up with a way that improves image quality, awesome. But we don't want to reduce image quality by any measure.
So how might this be different? This is an extension of C. Quintero's question. How might these plates be different than cassettes? There seems to be a little bit of confusion.
Yeah, so this, I mean, so there are scanners out there that use plates and that use cassettes. A cassette is essentially a holder for a plate, if you will, and that goes through. So it's kind of a slightly different system. Um, we don't want to, and I think Steven made this point too. We don't want to go to a cassette-based system right now because this like I said, the CRX Vision does not use a cassette. So if you had a cassette-based system, then you would have to come up with a transport mechanism for the cassette, which I guess doesn't make any sense, or maybe it does. So whatever it is, you have to transport it through the scanner, right? So either you put it in a cassette and transport it, which I think is a bigger problem to solve as opposed to just transporting the plate itself.
So one of the questions we're getting live right now is people are asking if the IP plate is floating through the transport system because there's a magnetic system.
No, it's not. It's not levitation that's being done. It's literally it's much more low tech, if you want to call it that. It's literally a magnet pulling. I mean, imagine that you have a magnet sticking onto your refrigerator, and the magnet is strong enough to pull the refrigerator along. It's that dumb. I mean, it's basically a magnet sticking onto something magnetic and pulling it through. So that's it. There is no levitation here. Levitation is not necessarily a bad idea, but we are not doing anything of that sort here. And yeah,
so the plate is the full plate magnetic, and it's just the magnet is holding on to a small portion of the entire plate.
I believe, and this I can get back on that, but I believe that the plate has a magnetic backing that is uniform. Potentially that is not required. The backing could be in portions of the plate, but remember, the plate itself is going to is I mean, let's not forget what we are doing all this for, right? The plate contains an X-ray image, and this X-ray image needs to get digitized, right? So if you have something in the backing that is not uniform, chances are it'll cause what is called X-ray backscatter. And if this backscatter is uniform, we can remove it or whatever, we can clean it up. But if it's non-uniform, then the backscatter might affect the image quality, and so that's something that people want to keep in their heads when they're going through this process. I guess again.
So with that, it sounds like part of the goal of this challenge is to be able to work with plates that aren't magnetic. Is that
yes,
right?
That's correct.
And so a new system has to be created, or
right.
a plate system, an adapter system that
right.
is magnetic has to be created?
Potentially, yes. I mean, so, okay, there are multiple ways we can think about this, right? So let's assume that, and this is all got to stay within the requirements of the dimensions that are on the website. I seem to remember numbers of like 600 micrometers or something as the maximum thickness. But anyway, that's on the website, so let's not worry about the exact numbers. But as long as we're staying within the dimensions, I can think of multiple ways that this could potentially go forward. One is, let's say you have a way to attach a magnetic backing onto the tape. So if you have a tape made of, for want of a better word, plastic, you can still attach a magnetic backing to it. Please note, IP plates are hardly ever made of plastic, I think, so I'm not saying that as an example. I'm just saying, possibly. That's one way to do it too. So essentially make the plate ferromagnetic in some way. Attach like a steel backing or an iron backing to it that makes it ferromagnetic. Remember, the plate does not have to be magnetic. It just has to be ferromagnetic. What that means is that, how do I put this? It doesn't have to be a magnet itself. It just needs to be something that sticks to a magnet. So it can be iron, it can be steel, it can be anything that literally sticks to a magnet. The magnet itself is inside the scanner. That's one way to think about it. The other way to think about it is that fine, GE can use its magnetic plates and the magnetic roller and whatnot. Maybe we can come up with, and this is what I call the pizza oven solution. Maybe we can come up with a track that runs through the scanner and then carries the plates on it. So that's possibly a solution. And like I said, the idea of going out to the community is to come up with solutions that we inside GE haven't even thought about yet.
I think someone on the platform mentioned the car wash method. When you pull into an automatic car wash, you're kind of
sure, right.
The car locks in.
Right. Yeah, that's another option. Again, whatever can stay within that. Again, the diamond. I don't want to. I think 600 micrometers dimensions for thickness, I think is a viable solution. And I want to be clear. We're not restricting to any particular form of solution. I think Steven mentioned every solution will have obviously advantages and disadvantages. Anything that requires the scanner to be taken apart and put back together will be a longer time frame, because A, we have to redesign the scanner, and B, and which takes more time, is that we have to go through several certification processes, because this is used in industry and this is used in oil and gas and so on, where we don't want where certifications are important before they can be put to use. So anything that takes apart, anything that touches the scanner really will mean that you have to take apart the whole thing and put it back together and recertify it and such.
So you mean you mean modifying the actual scanner to be able to utilize whatever
Right,
mechanism is proposed.
exactly. So that is why, if there has been an unconscious push from the SME side to change the plate and not the scanner, that's probably the reason. Because you change the plate, I mean, implementation is basically the amount of time it requires to change the plate. Whereas you change the scanner, then we're talking months and months in implementation, where we go to certification routes and whatnot.
So we have a couple more questions coming in. One talking about the sensitivity of the magnetic backing. I think we already covered that the plate itself is ferromagnetic,
Right.
but there were questions around the sensitivity of the magnet that's, I guess, latching on.
Sure. So when you say sensitivity, I'm assuming that you mean the sensitivity towards the digitization process. If that's the case, I honestly don't have numbers on it. I can get back to you with specific numbers, and we have the email address or whatever, right, of the people. Okay, so I can get back to you with specific numbers from, or Steven, our SME, can do that. As far as the actual qualitative sensitivity goes, yes, magnets will change the sensitivity of the plate. So we would ideally like, for starters, for the magnetic backing to be removable, so that when we actually go do the inspection, where we are actually taking the X-ray, we don't have the magnetic backing, so we don't have any backscatter issues or whatnot. Then once we come and we're ready to scan it, we literally just slap on the backing and then send it through the scanner. So that way we could avoid some of the sensitivity issues. Another potential option is to do something rigorous to make sure that the backing is uniform, in which case any change in pattern would happen uniformly across the surface, and so that could be removed somehow in post. When I say post processing.
So we have a question coming in that's a little more about how the process works.
Sure.
Is the scan itself a continuous process, like it's one long movement, like you move a pizza through a
Sure.
pizza oven, or is it like a static process, like it's pulled in and scanned and then pulled out?
I believe it's one long process. In fact, somebody brought this up, and I think Steven answered that. I believe it is one long process, so it's a timed process. So it carries it through and gets scanned along the way, and then it gets out. So that's kind of how I'm pretty sure it runs. But again, if I'm wrong, I'll be sure to get back.
We'll do some follow-up on some of these questions that we're not able to answer immediately. Let's see. We've had a couple questions about the strength of the magnet, so we'll get details on that. We've had several questions about the maximum and minimum size of the plate, and then talking about the thickness.
Okay, so
not necessarily with the
right.
exact numbers, but just general ideas of how big and small, how many different sizes are we trying to adapt for?
Right. So the one of the big things about this particular scanner is that it can accept plates of different dimensions and shapes. So any solution should ideally be adaptable to multiple dimensions and shapes, and we don't want to kind of, it's going to be one thing to say that we have a way to attach, other, our competitors' plates or plates from other companies, but it's going to be a real downside if you say, oh, but they have to be exactly the size. So the idea is to come up with something universal. So we don't want to actively restrict the sizes, but I understand if obviously, what I would imagine is that the solution will need to be adjusted a little bit for a different size plate, and that's acceptable. I don't expect one solution to continuously work for everything that you can put on it. Again, think of a pizza oven. But anyway, you really don't worry about whether it's a large pizza or a small pizza. You can just throw it on there; it'll work, right? So that's, again, I'm just throwing that out there. I really like imagining a pizza oven, I guess. So that's the first thing, and the second thing is that. As far as thicknesses go, again, exact numbers might be available on the website, and so that's the point is that the additional thickness needs to be the 600 micrometers. So if you go beyond that, then that's a problem, because then we don't have space to go through the scanner. So we really want to stay within that. Now remember, the plates that we use currently already have a ferromagnetic backing. So if you're coming up with a different plate and adding a ferromagnetic backing onto it, you have that leeway to work with. So that's where the 600 micrometers come from.
So that, I think, was the question. Is that 600 micrometers, is that between the current...
No, that's the amount of space you altogether have.
Altogether have to work with.
Right.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. Let's see. We've got a couple of other questions coming in. Some people are hungry for pizza now, is the response that we have.
Yep, I am too.
Is there a variety of plates that will move through the scanner? And so, are we talking different shapes? Are they all rectangular, all square, or is that the point? Is that they could literally be any shape?
Sure. They potentially, yes, they could be any shape. I doubt if there are really pizza shaped Well, pizza is a circle. But no, I doubt if they're like star-shaped plates going through. But I know for a fact that they're not necessarily all all square. I know some of them are rectangular. I remember thinking that all of them were rectangular, but again, don't quote me on that. I'm not familiar with all kinds of plates that exist in the market. But if somebody is making a plate shaped like an igloo, well, we can not worry about it. But if it's something that's reasonable, something that is flat and rectangular or square or maybe even L shaped or so, I think we should be able to accommodate that. Remember, I don't know how much we've talked about the actual process itself online, and maybe it's worth spending a minute on that. So, I mean, you have these plates, right? I mean, the point is that you can take these plates and you can wrap them around pipes and you can put them in weird places and capture the X-ray image. And then you bring it back and scan it, right? So you want the plate to have the flexibility. When I'm saying flex, I don't mean mechanical flexibility, but the shape of the plate and the size of the plate to have the flexibility to go out into the field and take those images that you want. So that's kind of where we don't want to restrict the sizes and shapes too much. Okay, so yeah.
Yeah, that's really good context. Do you have a little bit deeper of description? So that's what you're saying is that where do these X-rays come from, right? Just to give it more background on
right. So these come from primarily we have a lot of oil and gas pipelines which are X-rayed. So these pipes are X-rayed using these plates, and these plates are scanned through to test for defects on the pipes, and that's I guess a primary focus. Field X-ray radiography is a pretty developed field, okay, and which is the reason, by the way, that we have so many companies making plates and scanners, right? And so it's, I mean, like I said, there are multiple applications. I think of pipes as the most common because that's, I think, one of our biggest customer base.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I'm sure there are other applications. I mean, people use very similar stuff for taking dental X-rays. So there you go, and so it's not like it's one faceted here. So.
Oh, that's very interesting. So we had a question around if you move away from the magnetic concept, can you use a clamps or attachments? Is there any part of the plate that can be touched without damaging it?
So we used to use brushed rollers. I don't know if that makes sense, but essentially these are like small brushes.
Is it something like you'd see in like a printer now? I mean,
yeah.
Yeah,
right. So these would attach to the sides of the plates and push the plates through. The reason we moved away from that is because that lost throughput. So I'm not sure if the solution that's being suggested will maintain throughput of the scanner. See, one thing we don't want to do is, I mean, if you think about it, and we come up with a solution that says, okay, you can use any plate, but you lose 20% throughtput, right? Then that's basically like saying you can't use any plate.
Can you explain what you mean by throughput?
Oh, throughput is basically the rate at which the plate goes through the scanner. So number of plates per hour, per minute, however you want to quantize it. That's throughput. So if you have a slower transport mechanism, you have lower throughput, and so that's not necessarily a preferred solution. But again, let's see what comes in and see where we go.
Okay. Can we move back to the visual of the scanner?
Sure,
I think
absolutely,
there's a ton of questions coming in regards to the kind of magnetic rolling mechanism, because I think the image that you showed talked about a magnetic roller and a magnetic transport belt. So there's a little bit of confusion still between the difference between this roller and the belt.
So, okay. So basically, it's you have a plate sitting here.
I'm not sure if you can see the.
Oh, can you not see the mouse?
But you can see in the red zone. You can see.
Okay, yeah. So there you go. So the input tray has the plate sitting on it, and an operator physically moves the plate. Basically, I think that means that's industry speak for he pushes the plate down, and until it touches the input roller, right? And then the input roller obviously attaches to the bottom of the plate and pulls it down or through, and then it hits the transport belt. And that's when the scanning begins, and the transport belt then takes us through to the other end, and it basically gets onto the output tray. So that's the role of the input role and the transport belt. Really.
Awesome, thank you. Let me check real quick for any other last questions. We had some questions about sensitivity. How sensitive are the plates?
I'm not sure I understand. Maybe, I don't know, is the person online or is it from the web?
It came in previously.
Right. I'm not quite sure what that statement means in terms of sensitivity of the plates. If you're talking about X-ray sensitivity, again, those numbers I mean, they're available on our manual, for example. I can pull them off and send them to you. But I doubt if that's what they're talking about. Are you talking about how the sensitivity gets affected?
I think it might be how sensitive are they to being manipulated with the clamp. Someone had mentioned an adhesive to carry them
That
through.
way. Yeah, sure. I understand. I think it's always an issue, and we'll have to figure that out partially downstream. Uh, but that said, I think if we can keep it uniform across the bottom of the plate, the actual imaging process might not be that affected. Um, so again, I think uniformity might be key, and if you can make it removable so that this gets affected only in scanning, if it gets affected, that is, and not while actually taking the images, I think that would be a big plus, right? I mean, so basically we're saying that the plates remain the same as they were before, just that when you bring them to the scanner, you attach this backing or whatever it is, and then take it through, and when they're done with scanning, you take off the backing and then you send the plate out for the next set of x-rays.
Okay. Yeah, so it looks like the question was a little bit about magnetic sensitivity. So that's something that we'll find out, and we'll post that answer
Sure.
in the discussion for the live Q&A.
Right, and if you could again explain. So when you say magnetic sensitivity, are you talking about the sensitivity of the field in terms of like Gauss or something, Gauss or whatever it is, or are you talking about how what is like a so sensitivity? Okay, let me explain where my confusion comes from. To me, sensitivity is the measure of a change with respect to something, right? And I'm trying to figure out what is changing and what with respect to it. I mean, with respect to what is the change being asked for.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I'm kind of confused. And then I don't know. Maybe if you can explain in the live Q&A. If not, like I said, I can pull some data for you.
So we've got a couple more questions. Yes, the magnetic field across the plate.
Okay, so yeah, that's a good one. The magnetic field across the plate is obviously, when I say uniform, and nice catch by the way, when I say uniform, nothing is uniform to 100%. I don't know, honestly. I don't even know if anybody's measured it. I know that these plates work right now, so it can't be too terrible. But I can find out. I mean, I don't know if anybody has done that measurement. We actually, the design is done by G, and we have a supplier who builds these for us, and they might have some data on what the way. So you're talking essentially about variation of the field across the surface of the plate, right? And that, I'm sure we can find that information for you. It's just not really available anywhere out there. And like I said, I think the attitude is basically that it works, so don't break it, right? I mean, don't ask too many questions. So anyway.
So what happens when we don't use like an approved tray? Like right now, if we had something that was not magnetic, is you just can't even push it through the system?
I mean, right now, if it's not magnetic, I believe it'll be much like a paper jam. So it basically gets stuck. I mean,
Okay.
you'll push it to the magnetic roller, and the roller, because of the fact that it is rolling, might pull it in a little bit, and then basically we're done. So that's what would happen today if you were to shove a plate in.
Okay. Okay. So someone's asking for a little bit of clarity when it comes to throughput. Rafa Lujo.
Yeah. Hey, Raphael, by the way.
Asking for clarity on the throughput. It's probably a very major requirement then.
Yes.
Similar to the way a copier would work.
Absolutely right. And let me see if I can get you an actual number here. It's on the FAQs. At least that's where I put it. I don't remember where the FAQs went.
So when you go to the project page or the challenge page, on the left-hand side, you should see a handbook, and within the handbook, we have frequently asked questions posted there. Yeah. And so if we don't answer those frequently asked questions, you can post your question even after our live Q&A in the live Q&A discussion section, and we'll make sure to answer your questions.
Yep, the current throughput of the scanner. So obviously it depends on plates per. The size of the plate. So a 14-inch by 17-inch plate goes through at 45 plates per hour, and if we are requiring a 70 micrometer resolution of scan, and that's a scan resolution, it's got nothing to do with the sensitivity of the actual magnetic backing or anything. That's literally the resolution at which that image is scanned, and when it gets to 35 micrometers, you can push through 16 per hour. So if you want a higher resolution, then you need to reduce your throughput. So 16 and 45, I guess, are the numbers you're talking about, Rafael, for throughput. That gives you kind of the range. Obviously, throughput depends on resolution that you're looking for. Think about a regular scanner, right? I mean, if you were to put a photograph on a typical scanner, and say I want I don't know 1200 by 1200 DPI, it'll take X amount of time. And if I say I want just 300 by 300 DPI or 300 DPI, it'll give you a faster scan. So basically that's it. And then so yeah, that's what we have. And again like Amelia said, it is on our FAQ in the handbook. Yeah, sorry, blanked out there for a second.
Yes, we use a lot of acronyms, so we'll try to spread that. We'll try to spell those out. So thank you to everyone who participated. Let's see, we have one more question. So basically, the speed at which the plant travels through the machine is different based on the resolution.
Absolutely, and that's what I mentioned. I mean, that's true for. I mean, so I don't know. Maybe, and this is one thing that we've been talking about internally, right? Maybe we made this challenge sound like a big deal, but basically, we're looking for a scanner, and we're looking for things to take a play through a scanner. You can think about it in terms of, like I said, as simple as pizza ovens. If you want something more sophisticated, think about like an automated scanning of a sheet of paper through a scanner made by Xerox, for example. It's essentially the same basic concept, right? You have a sheet in the case of a paper scanner, or you have an IP plate in the case of our scanner, and this needs to be transported through a scan mechanism. And so very similar concepts apply. I mean, if you want higher resolution, it needs to scan slower. I don't want to go into a whole spiel about how scanners work, but you have this whole, you're taking a picture of this, right? And taking a slow picture versus a fast picture. So a slow picture will give you better resolution. So that's basically what we're doing. And like I said, the request is very simple here, in the sense we want to be able to basically transport any plate through the scanner. That's basically it. So it might help to think of much simpler examples that exist out there already.
Thank you. That was excellent. If you guys have any more questions, you can keep posting in the discussion section under the live Q&A, and we'll keep answering. We're also recording this live Q&A, so we'll post the video up for anyone to rewatch. Other than that, thank you, Naveen.
Yep, thank you very much. It was fun.
We'll host another one for the next challenge. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.